Hey, so today I'm going to show you a tour of this amazing reptile room here. It's not huge, but the species inside it are amazing and worth your while, so stay tuned. We're going to see some incredible species. Okay, so now Chris is going to show us some of his amazing animals.
We're going to start with the Palestine viper. It was a species I bred this year for the first time, so I'm pretty excited about that.
So where do these guys come from?
Palestine. These are, from what I understand, an Israeli locality. Jerusalem.
Okay, that would explain the redness.
Quite a big snake, behaving pretty well, but you certainly wouldn't want to take a bite from this animal.
Definitely not. What are their temperaments like in general?
Generally pretty good. You can see he's relaxed, pretty chilled. They can get agitated, and once they decide, look, they've had enough, it's best to sort of heed that warning. The biggest risk with them really is their feeding response is wild. Very explosive, obviously a hardcore ambush species. So the problem is when they look like they're pretty chilled, relaxed.
They're not necessarily that chilled.
They're just waiting, you know.
A fairly large viper, hey? Nice and large.
They're also quite lean, eh?
They are. They don't seem like your typical viper body structure and build.
Yeah, they are Deboya, which is, you know, probably the most common species in that genus is the Russell's viper.
Yeah.
Which are also quite lean.
Are they as agile as the Russell's viper also?
No, certainly not. I mean, you can see this thing is quite sluggish. But the other thing as well is these are egg layers.
Okay.
Where the Russell's vipers are live bearers. So within the same genus, you've got egg layers and live bearers. So there's a little bit of a complication there. So
what I'd love to see is the Macrovipera man. That would be cool if you could take him out.
I will be. He's a little bit less tolerant
I can
than
imagine.
the Palestine. But, and he does a lot of huffing and puffing. You know, I've always affectionately referred to him as the pink puffer. But you'll see he's we'll have to just get past the feeding response because, again, very explosive feeding response. You can see he's thinking there's food coming.
This stunning snake is a Moorish viper, known by us keepers as Macrovipera martinica. However, they were reclassified in 2001 as Deboya martinica, and I think we still call them Macrovipera just because the most common Deboya is your Russell's viper, and that snake does not lay eggs, and this Deboya does lay eggs. So it's a bit weird that you have a snake that does and does not lay eggs within the same genus.
Beautiful colors on him. It's so difficult to really sort of
capture it,
but the coloration on him is something special.
And those scales, wow, it literally looks like a grater. I mean, it's got those little, what would you call it, serrations like a cheese grater would have.
Yeah, it's like an unusual type of keeling, isn't it?
It is.
Just huffing and puffing at the moment. He's actually more of like a bark than bite individual. The female's the other way around, so you're going to worry a little bit about her. But
not that you'd want to test it out.
No, not at all, eh? Shucks.
He's definitely a hook bender, hey?
Yeah, I should really be using slightly bigger hooks.
There you go. What a stunning snake. This, I know you love the small little rattlesnakes. Can you show us some of those?
The problem with rattlesnakes is they're small and cheeky. They don't hook very well. So let's take this little guy here, put him on the work surface. I'll actually move this towel just to sort of get a nice contrast in his color.
And this is, what's it?
This is the white speckled rattlesnake. Everyone likes the colors on this guy. What I've done specifically just to try and make things a lot easier is I run all the cages with the spots. Okay, so all the heating is from above, which is run off of a thermostat and a timer.
So it's all halogen heating?
It's all halogen. There's no underfloor heating, and it'll run through certain periods of the day depending on what time of year it is. Because I'm getting old, what I do is I actually keep a note of what times of the year I need to change the daylight hours.
Oh, hectic.
So as it'll run through to winter, you might find there's only 2 to 3 hours of the spots per day, whereas in this time of year they're on at 9 and they only go off after 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And do you find the animals respond better using the halogen lighting opposed to like belly heat?
Certainly the snakes I keep. So the vipers, they want to be basking. They want to be basking. I think the belly heat. Yes, to answer your question, I'm not going off on a tangent. I think yes, particularly the snakes I keep, I think do far better with the halogen heat as opposed to heat from underneath. It's easy as well to me because I'm not sure. I've got this is not my full-time job, unfortunately. I've got other things to do, so everything runs off a timer. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, all the lamps will come on, but you can't allow them obviously to overheat when the summer gets warm in here. So it also runs off of a thermostat. So as soon as any cage gets over the 29 degrees that this one is programmed for, it'll then switch the lamps off. So even though it's only lunchtime at the moment, all these lamps are off because they're sitting at temperatures which are perfect for that particular species. This is very labor intensive. The small ones, they're also nice. There's one snake per cage. They eat once a week and they go about their business and everything. They pretty much look after themselves. This time of year where there's a lot of babies, everything's now hatched. The season's sort of in its peak, I suppose, because all the eggs are now converted to young snakes. This is where it's the most labor intensive. Spend hours and hours and hours here listening to the radio and sorting out baby snakes. So that's what I've done. With the racks, there's a slight difference in the temperature. So these are heated from the bottom on a thermostat. The center one is for certain species that don't need any heat. So this has no heating, and this one's a slightly cooler heating as well. You'll see as well what I've done with the colubrids. There's less ventilation to give a slightly higher humidity, whereas these ones has got a high ventilation at the front. It's just really good for the vipers, particularly the arboreal vipers. They need a lot of airflow and ventilation. Yeah, the idea is to keep it enjoyable. I certainly don't want my snake collection just to be a chore. I don't want it to be cleaning. As soon as I think you've got too many snakes that you're just cleaning all the time, I think it sort of sucks a little bit of the joy out of it.
Yeah.
But that being said, there's still a lot of snakes here. There's still a lot of snakes here. They all need to be looked after. My fascination with reptiles or with the snakes is the breeding side of it. That's made a lot easier if you can house them individually and make sure that you manage the year on each individual snake, the male and the female. You know what it's like breeding snakes.
Yes.
It's not getting two animals and putting them together and then they breed. It starts in January and ends in December, so it's a whole process, and if you can manage that process on each individual snake, your breeding success is far better, in my opinion.
It's a whole cycle. So this is a pretty cool arboreal setup you have here. All the cages are just so neat and perfect. What are you going to take out now for us?
So this is my female Gumprex viper. This is a species that I've been breeding since 2014, and she's actually she's a holdback baby from that first litter, so she's nice and big, well established. The other thing with these enclosures that are well planted is that they obviously suit the snakes better than they suit the keepers to some degree, which is not a problem. A lot of these trims, typically the females are just very green. The Gumprex are nice because they've got a good size to them, nice big head. Now I feed these arboreal vipers, all of them, very sparingly. I mean, there's times of the year where she won't eat for 3 months.
Wow.
Now's the time of the year where she eats a lot. She's just had her babies, we're coming up to the winter season, so she'll be eating now more regularly than she would the rest of the year.
She's stunning. And are they much different to keep to like your white lips? Or?
Oh, very different, very, very, very different. The feeding response on these is impressive, and the other thing as well is they're quite tolerant of cool temperatures. They need quite a hard winter. When I say quite a hard winter, they need a very obvious winter, as opposed to sort of a lot of the other species, the white lips in particular, that like that nice constant. The nice thing about them as well is that one of the hassles of breeding these arboreals is the babies come out so small that to get them started can be quite a hack. You're feeding small prey items and you're tease feeding and you're going through that whole rigmarole. But with the Gumprex, the babies come out and they eat but they eat big pinks right off the bat from their very first meal, and it's all pretty plain sailing.
So tell us about that little guy. Or girl.
So this very unusual Herald was caught locally. So it's a wild caught anomaly. It's got blue eyes, looks leucistic, looks very similar to some of the morphs that you see in the black rat snakes. You see those white-sided black rat snakes, it looks like that. So yeah, it's just very unusual, gorgeous little animal. It's got all the normal, obviously the traits of the Herald. It's quite cheeky, it likes to sort of spade its head and strike out.
It's really cool to see some like animal wild type morphs. So not just lion bred in captivity, but these animals are found in the wild from time to time. Do you think they would actually survive in the wild? What are your thoughts on that?
Geez, that's a hot topic. You know, the reality is, I'll give you my opinion, and I suppose you could argue this until the cows come home, but the reality is I don't think they would do.
Yeah.
For instance, a Herald is the colour it is, living in the habitat it is, and those two things go together. When suddenly you get a white Herald as opposed to a black Herald or a green Herald, it throws it all out.
It's an easy prey
item. It's an easy target, and I think whether it's an albino or a white Herald, or I think the reality is such a small percentage of snakes make it to maturity anyway. Those who are at a very obvious disadvantage, like albinism, are going to get picked off first.
Do you think at first when he first saw it, he was like, what is this?
Definitely, because when he found it as well, it was like a hatchling. So it was this teeny tiny little white snake that was just like a funny color. And I think if it hadn't put on like the typical Herald display, I think he wouldn't. Because when he sent me the photo, I didn't have a clue what it was. But I mean, in hand, you could imagine it was carrying on like a Herald, and you can see now the snake carries on like this.
So what's this over here?
So this here is one of my absolute favorite species that I keep. Super active, diurnal. This is the Philadrias baroni, or the Baron's races. This is my adult male.
Obviously not venomous.
well, this, you know, they're back-fanged and venomous, and some of the species within this genus can get quite a nasty bite. You might find that some people would say that rather don't hold them, but since I've had this particular pair, they've never even struck at me once. So you can see they're quite active and a little bit jumpy, full diurnal, but not particularly aggressive or defensive. They're just a really, really pleasant species to work with.
That's interesting. I never knew that they actually had venom. I thought they were like completely, harmless. Well, they're pretty harmless, but they do lack venom, I guess. Oh, not lack. They have.
They have venom, yeah. They have venom, and there's a couple of guys out there like I don't know. It's debatable as to sort of how serious it actually is, but the bottom line is this individual's just never even struck at me once, and I've had them since they were worms.
So what's this guy over here?
This is my favorite snake in my collection. This is my black-tailed creeper. He's an absolute gem. Apart from the fact that he's eaten one of his girlfriends.
And he just doesn't stop, he keeps moving, eh?
Yeah, again, very, very, very busy. Yeah, just very cool snakes, powerful, eat absolutely anything. Pretty chilled disposition. Yeah, and they're quite impressive to watch eat as well, because they don't have venom and they don't constrict.
So they just overpower everything.
That's exactly it. They just sort of either like thrash it about, like almost like club it to death, or they chow it alive.
Wow, that's just swallow it all. Wait
Just
for
eat it
the
fast.
digestive system to take over. Incredible.
Yeah, I suppose their sort of weapon is their digestive system.
Quite a few enzymes in there that I wouldn't want to. Almost like venom, but not exactly.